The Algoma Public Library Board of Trustees met on February 22nd. As far as programming, we continue to offer many different programs for all ages. There is a kids quilt project going on throughout the month of March in honor of Youth Arts Month, and in partnership with Artbeat Incorporated. Children and families are invited to pick up a kids quilt project kit. Kits will contain materials to make a paper version of a quilt block and information about quilting. Once the blocks are complete, they can be brought back to the library for display. Stop in at the library throughout the month of March to watch our quilt grow. March 14th, we have a flower kit for adults. A kit designed for adults but simple enough that kids can help. This kit includes a flower pot, soil, seeds, and library resources on flowers. March 15th, we have a kids March kit, Make It kit. Kids can pick up this kit to create fun solutions to some challenges. And March 25th at 1 p.m., we'll have an Internet 101 program. This is a basic internet security presentation that will cover the basics on email, online shopping, and passwords. Monday, March 28th, we'll hold another escape room with the theme of Spring Road Trip. Call or sign up at the library. Our monthly programs include study and snacks for teens, story hour, story time, Maker Wednesdays, after school movies, adult creative writing, memory cafe, book clubs, teen advisory group, and all of these programs and more can be found on our website and our Facebook page. 2 new patron computers have been installed in the library to help keep up with our rotation plan. These 2 in particular were getting slow, so the upgrade is well needed. Applications are being accepted for a $1,000 scholarship offered by our Algoma Library Friends for persons residing or employed in Kewaunee County who are pursuing a higher degree in library science or reading media specialists. Please contact the library for more information. Our next library board meeting will be held on March 21st at 4 p.m.
Hello, I am Matt Murphy, the Public Works Director for the City of Algoma. The Public Works Committee had met on February 15th, 2022 at 8:30 a.m. here at City Hall. A couple of the topics, I apologize, we actually met at the street shop because of the election. We met at the street shop in February. And a couple of the main topics that were discussed is our street and sidewalk work that we will be doing throughout the city this year, and trying to budget down how much sidewalk work we're going to do and how much street work we're going to do besides the 3rd Street project between Clark and Navarino, the extra seal coating or chip sealing that we will be doing throughout the city was discussed. The Public Works Committee is down in Peterson Park removing abundance of dead ash trees in the back of the park up on the hills behind the baseball diamonds. We've been pretty busy cutting trees down there. We've had a pretty moderate winter here as far as plowing snow goes. A lot of salting operations just because of the low amounts of snowstorms that we've had here in the city. I'm hoping to finish this week with the tree removal down in Peterson Park, and we have approximately a dozen trees throughout the city, street trees, that we will be taking down in different areas of the city. I'm hoping to take care of that here in the next couple of weeks. Spring is hopefully not too far away from us. The Marina Docks, we're looking hopefully to see where the weather ends up in April. Sometime mid-April, start putting the docks back in and have the marina ready to open probably by the end of April. Ideally, if the weather holds out in our favor, that would be the ultimate goal for that, but it's very weather permitted, weather dictated. The city also received bids and open bids on Friday for the 3rd Street project that I alluded to a little earlier. That project will hopefully take place. There should be, bids were opened and a contractor will be awarded. Signatures will go out here hopefully by the end of this week, early part of next week, and we'll be able to report to you as there will be a pre-conference meeting and a public information meeting on this 3rd Street project between Clark Street and Navarino Street for all the public to attend, which will be very vital, especially for the residents and the business owners down on 3rd Street. But we will get information out as soon as possible through who the contract was awarded to, that we can get that out once that meeting is set up in detail. So that is all that I have for the Public Works Director. Our next meeting will be March 15th at 8:30 a.m. back here at City Hall. Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Randy Remicker with the Algoma Police Department, here to give you the report for February 2022 for the Police Department. In our big news, Officer Ron Seidel, who's been with the department for over 30 years, is announcing his retirement. Tentatively, his last day will be May 1st. We want to thank Ron for his years of service and appreciate everything he's done for the city. And personally, Ron, I want to thank you and I wish you well, and if you need anything, just give me a call. In other news and personnel, Officer Ann Banke has officially moved to full-time from part-time, and she'll make a great addition to the city, so you might see her out more often. Well, with Officer Seidel's retirement, we will be conducting a hiring process this Saturday, March 12th. For those candidates who applied, hope to see you there and wish you good luck. In other news, our squad vehicle, we were scheduled to buy a new squad this year, but due to supply issues and the dealerships having to cut back as far as what vehicles they were producing, our order was canceled. At this point in time, we're going to hold off and wait to see what happens in July with the 2023 models coming out, at which time we'll be bringing our best suggestion to the City Council for approval. If you've been around to the schools lately, you probably have seen Officer Brady Temple walking around on campus. This is part of a tentative trial basis we're doing with the schools for a school resource officer. So far, the feedback we've gotten has been very positive, and if this continues, we'll sit down with the city, between the city and the school district, to see if we're going to move forward with a more formal agreement going into next school year. And finally, with the statistics data for the year, for the past month, meaning January, we had 134 calls compared to last year with 104. I want to thank you for your time. Take care and be safe. We'll see you later.
Hello, I'm Pete Hawk, reporting on the Algoma Utility Commission's meeting held February 16th of last month. All members were present except Lee Dashlet was excused. In the meeting, old business was covered, and under old business, the commission spoke on electric vehicle charging stations, information about costs, potential grants will be reviewed at future meetings. Some local businesses are researching the installation of EV charging stations, and the utility and WPPI Energy will work with these businesses and share funding and grant opportunities as they become available. Recent legislation, Assembly Bill 588 and Senate Bill 573, were also discussed pertaining to electric vehicle charging stations. Under new business, discussion about a part-time utility customer service position and recruitment process were discussed. This will be added to next month's agenda as an old business item. Payment of bills were approved, and roll call vote, all yes. The utility has a issue on Church Street with a property owner who has a claim for damage to their basement from a past water main break, which happened in about 2011. So the utility will be turning that claim into our insurance, and we'll move on with that. And also in the manager's report, Schmidt requested an explanation of an annual Marina light maintenance invoice. The invoice included labor, equipment, and a bulb to repair 4 lights and replace one of them. So at the utility right now, our crews are out trimming trees. It's our winter project for most of the winter. We've installed two secondary electric lines in the last month to new buildings in town that are being built. We have had 5 water main breaks to date. A topic of conversation has been the patches in the streets for the water mains. If you would happen to have any issues with the patches where there was a water main break, please don't hesitate to call the utility, as we would be happy to come out and repair the patch or fill it or whatever the case may be. But please do not hesitate to call the utility in such a case. Other than that, that's about all I have. Our next meeting will be Wednesday, March 16th at 5:30, and it'll be at the utility office. And that's all I have for you today.
Greetings. I'm Chief Tom Ackerman, head of the Algoma Fire Department Rescue Squad, and these are the meeting notes from the Protection of Persons and Property meeting held on February 28th of this past month. The Algoma Fire Department responded to 7 calls during the month of February, which puts us at a total of 10 calls per year. Algoma Rescue Squad responded to 32 calls in February and puts them at a total of 80 calls year to date. On February 10th, 2022, myself and Records Administrator Casey Gressel met with a representative from the Wisconsin Department of Safety and Professional Services for a 2% dues audit. The audit generally consisted of reviewing fire inspections, fire prevention and public education activities, department training records, along with fire reports and other fire department statutory requirements for the calendar year of 2021. It was the observation of the auditor that the fire department is in substantial compliance with the requirements of the statutes and administrative rules of the state of Wisconsin for the 2% dues program. And these monies are a revenue source for the fire department to continue with our operations. Fire and EMS personnel completed CPR recertification in February, and all members are current with their CPR requirements. 8 fire department members completed new fire officer 101 training during the month of February. During an upcoming EMS meeting on March 9th, members will be reviewing state protocols and scope of practices with squad directors and medical directors. This is a state requirement for the EMS and ambulance service. We have no current update on our new ambulance, which was recently ordered, as our manufacturer is unable to acquire a chassis to begin the build. The next public safety meeting, the next public safety building meeting for the public to attend and review the plans along with a question and answer period will be held on March 16th of 2022 at 6:00 p.m. at the elementary school. If anybody would like to schedule a visit with myself to stop at the station and see our current conditions, please contact me. My number is 920-255-3671, or I can be reached via email at afdchief@algomacity.org, and that information will be put on the screen. And that concludes our minutes from the month of February. Thank you.
I'm Jared Hahn. I'm the city administrator, and I'll be going over the minutes for a variety of our committees. The Redevelopment Authority met on Tuesday, February 8th, here in the council chambers at 7 p.m. Pretty straightforward meeting to continue to discuss an update on the redevelopment area that we've been going into and doing that project for the CDBG funds. And then it also included a closed session period where the RDA discussed with our relocation specialist and our consultants parameters for going over the appraisals for the properties that were performed, as well as going over parameters for negotiations. So the relocation plan, that is the next step in the process, and that'll be taken up by the city council at their next meeting in the month of March. And then once that is done, the ball really start to get rolling here with making those offers to the tenants and the property owners. And then very briefly, there was a brief discussion on the public safety building, the proposed public safety building, and the referendum for the Redevelopment Authority. And the reason for that is because if the referendum were to pass on the April 5th election, the Redevelopment Authority would have to be the entity which issues the debt, and then the city would basically pay the Redevelopment Authority. And so staff wanted to bring them up to speed. on that process so that they are prepared for that should that referendum pass. And the next redevelopment authority meeting will actually be next week on Tuesday, March 8th. The Community Development Committee met on Monday, February 21st at 4 p.m. Here at City Hall. And just as a quick note, that will be the 4 p.m. will be the start time of all the CDC meetings moving forward. Where typically they had been 6 p.m., they will now be 4 p.m. So getting into old business, they continue their discussion on the Economic Development Information Packet, and that was moving along. They had another very lengthy discussion on what they see as the body's role in addressing downtown aesthetics, both from a tourism perspective, but also a business perspective. That conversation is ongoing and will be on the next agenda. And then there was a brief follow-up discussion presentation from the Algoma United Methodist Church. They had submitted an application last year for some CDC grant monies for basically a blight elimination a project and looking to do that. Going into new business, they discussed and considered the library's request for their annual CDC grant that they request each year for their movie in the park, which would be in July, I believe. So there was some discussion on that. It was approved unanimously, and so that will be moving forward. And then finally, they had a brief discussion on the CDC and what projects and tasks, tying up loose ends with my departure from the city at the end of the month, March 31st being my last day. They wanted to know what things they need to keep on their radar so that they don't fall behind on and make sure get accomplished in both the short and medium term. So the CDC will be meeting again on Monday, March 21st at 4 p.m. here at City Hall. The Finance and Personnel Committee held 2 separate meetings in the month of February. There was a special meeting called on Thursday, February 17th at 4:30 p.m. here in the council chambers. This meeting was called to discuss specifically and only, and not to make a decision on, just to discuss the potential sale of the Algoma long-term care unit, the med center. It was requested from some of the employees at the facility and members of the public that such a meeting be held to give them an opportunity to speak directly to the council on the matter, and so that was the case. We had, I believe, 9 members of the audience, between public and employees, get up and speak, and the council, or rather the committee, also provided then their statements on the matter. So again, no action here was taken. This was strictly to facilitate a dialogue. And then that led into then the regular meeting the following week on Tuesday, February 22nd at 4:30 p.m. here in the council chamber. So immediately the committee went into closed session to discuss 2 separate offers or proposals to purchase the facility, the medical center. So they moved the closed session up to the beginning of it to kind of get that out of the way first, and so that the 2 parties here would not have to wait here for the entire meeting. So there was a very lengthy discussion there where they went over each offer from each of the parties who were present. They gave a presentation in that closed session outlining their vision for it, and then the council or the committee deliberated for some time on that, asking each party a variety of questions. And then following that, they then went into a discussion on the recruitment for the city administrator position. As I noticed in a previous minutes recording here, that March 31st will be my last day, and so we were discussing the recruitment process for the city administrator position. So then they came out of closed session, did not take any action as a result of the closed session, went through the normal approving the bills and previous minutes and that sort of thing. Then there was some public comment. We had a couple members of the public get up and speak on a variety of matters. And then under old business, we were talking again about the Parks and Recreation fee schedule. This had previously gone to the City Council at their February meeting. but it was more or less kicked back to the Finance Committee for more discussion and consideration, particularly as it pertained to event applications and the fees for the use of parks and facilities for ongoing or recurring events. So, for example, the question was how much would an organization be charged, for example, with the farmers market that occurs every week? Would they be subject to the fee every single day that that market is held, or would the series of the farmers market events be considered one event? So there was a lot of discussion on that, but eventually the committee settled on applying the fee schedule as it was presented with an hourly rate, but capped at $300 per event, and an event was defined as a series of recurring events. So in the case of the farmers market, they would be subject to the $300 limit for their entire event, which would be each date that it's held. I believe there are 10 each year. That would be considered one event in totality. There's a very brief discussion on the purchase of a new leaf vac coming out of capital funds for public works. Unanimous vote to approve that, or recommend for approval to the council. There was a brief discussion on water main patches throughout the city, specifically referring to how to pay for and who would conduct the work of patching the street where it had to be bored out to work on the water main. So there was some discussion on that, but ultimately no action was taken as a result of that discussion. And so that's more or less going to continue to be worked out at the staff level between our public works director and the utility staff. There was a very short discussion on the sewer credit application policy. Public Works Committee was recommending that the sewer credit application policy require the signature of a licensed plumber in order to be considered for reimbursement by the Public Works Committee. And so that was recommended to the council at their March meeting for approval. We discussed, or rather the committee discussed, amending resolution 1099-2022 squad purchase. We basically had some unforeseen factors come up with our vehicles here. Initially, the police department was authorized to purchase a 2022 Ford Explorer, and they attempted to place that order with the vendor. However, the vendor had not placed that order, and so at the time of this finance and personnel meeting, they were made, however, aware that they would be able to buy a Dodge Durango squad vehicle, which was initially what they had wanted to do. And so because the resolution specifically contemplated a Ford Explorer, they had to amend that resolution. So for the finance and personnel meeting, that was changed. However, when I get to the city council minutes, I will explain why that did not quite come to fruition either. Then there was a discussion, a very brief discussion on the police department officer vacancies and recruitment, and moving forward with that. The chief recommended to the city council that they change the employment status of one of our current part-time officers, and Banke, from part-time to full-time. So that was recommended to the council at their March meeting. There was by the time we got to the last item on the agenda, the 2022-2026 capital improvement plan, the meeting had already gone on for several hours at that point. And so that was tabled until the next meeting, which will be Tuesday, March 15th at 4:30 p.m., which dovetails nicely into my last notes here that is in fact when the next meeting will be. The Common Council met on Tuesday, March 1st at 6 p.m. Here in the council chambers. Immediately went into closed session to discuss a couple of outstanding matters, one of which was the Algoma Medical Center, offered to the offers and proposals to purchase that facility. So there was continued discussion on that, some follow-up discussion from the Finance and Personnel meeting on the 22nd. And then there was additional discussion on the city administrator recruitment process and the advertised salary range that the council wished to use for that. Coming out of the closed session, that was the only action taken was regarding the city administrator recruitment. And so that will be posted here very, very soon. You'll start to see it popping up with the job description, the job announcement, and the salary range. We would encourage anyone who feels that they are qualified and interested in the position to submit their application. It will be open for 60 days. And so you've got some time to do that, but again, we would highly encourage or strongly encourage anyone who's interested to apply. Went through, approved the bills, credit card payments, very brief discussion on some of the training, but that was ultimately approved for the police chief to attend. Approved the committee reports, got into old business, where they once again reviewed Resolution 1105-2022, the Park and Rec fee schedule. That had actually come up at the February council meeting, but was punted back to the Finance and Personnel for some modifications. It was finally adopted here at this council meeting with those modifications, more or less changing the limit for a fee for a recurring event, such as the farmers market. So that was adopted this past week, and then we got into discussion here, Resolution 1109-2022. Discussed a little bit in the Finance and Personnel minutes here, but long story short, we were going to purchase a Ford Explorer for the police department. That fell through due to a failure on the vendor's part, but they notified us that we could get a Durango, which was originally what we wanted and was a little bit cheaper. So that order was placed. However, then we were notified between the Finance and Personnel Committee meeting and prior to the council meeting that Chrysler, the manufacturer of these, were canceling all of the orders that were not already in production, which ours was not. And so as a result of that, we will no longer be getting that 2022 Dodge Durango, and instead we are going to be waiting until about July when the new model years rolled out, and we will be placing an order at that time. Or I should say that is the tentative plan to do that. Couple of resolutions here that were very briefly discussed and approved. 1110-2022 to purchase the leaf vac. That was discussed at Public Works as well as Finance and Personnel. Resolution 1111-2022, the sewer credit application policy, basically affirming the requirement that a licensed plumber sign off on any requests. We had a very brief discussion on Resolution 1112-2022, which was a bid opening for the 3rd Street street project coming up here this year, with Peters being the low bidder. That bid opening was actually following the Finance and Personnel Committee, which is why you didn't see it on that agenda, but it is listed on the council agenda. That was approved and awarded to Peters. And finally, we got into the big item of the night, which was the consideration of offers to purchase the Algoma long-term care unit. The council, one by one, was asked to basically provide, after their discussion on it here in open session, they were asked to, if they had anything to add, and so a number of them took the opportunity to express their sentiments about the process, the dialogue that has occurred, the situation that the facility is in, and why they're looking to do what they're doing. Ultimately, they did decide to authorize the sale to one of the buyers, an external buyer. So that will be moving forward. That is currently in the process of working out with between legal counsel the details of it, but that is moving forward. And that is ultimately what they decided to do. I highly encourage anyone who's interested in more detail, because we could be here for another 3 hours going into that. I highly encourage any interested individuals to go to our YouTube page where you're likely seeing this video and looking at the recording of the March council meeting, as well as going on our website and reading through the minutes from our finance and personnel meetings. You'll see some pretty detailed notes there as well. And there was also some discussion at the previous council meeting as well in February, some time ago. After that, we went into discussion on the police department officer vacancies and recruitment and eligibility list, talking about the plan there. The police chief has 9 parties who submitted by the deadline, 9 applicants for the eligibility list. Those interviews will be happening in the near future. And then the final item related to that was the recommendation from Finance and Personnel to promote Officer Banke from a part-time position to a full-time position. So that was approved unanimously, and that is now also effective immediately. Went into my report, just updating everyone on a couple of matters, including the referendum for the public safety building, the redevelopment authority project, and that this was in fact my last council meeting that I would be attending, because again my last day will be March 31st here with the city. So with that, the council adjourned much later that night, and their next meeting will be back on their regular schedule of Monday, April 4th at 6 p.m. That is the day before the election. So again, we just want to remind everyone to, if you are not already registered to vote, to do so, and then to keep an eye out for if you are registered to vote, absentee or early voting, early in-person absentee, whatever you want to call it. That starts on March 22nd and runs until 5 p.m. on Friday, April 1st. So with that, I just want to say farewell, because again, this will be my last minutes recording, and wish nothing but the best of luck for the entire Algoma community and the staff here. Thank you.